Welcome to Beyond the Trees, a podcast with Cedarwood Financial Partners. I'm the COO Alex Murphy. Next to me is our CFO David Boothby, along with our Chairman Todd Vincent, and there's also our CEO Dylan Ripley over here as well. Today we're going to talk about why partnered independence. So I think that's a great topic, but before we get into that, I think it's important to cover why independence first, and then we can get into a little bit more detail on why partnered. So Todd, why don't you kick it off and just tell us a little bit about what independence is to you, and then we can dive into more intricacies of what independence looks like. But I think it's important first to just say, what is independence?
We talked a bit about independence a little bit when we discussed one of our core values of freedom, and I think they kind of go hand in hand in that the independence really means you have freedom and flexibility to build your business in a way that you feel is appropriate to meet the needs of your clients. Of course, that encompasses a lot of things, but more importantly is just the idea that you have choice to find the products that are appropriate. You have choice to find the technology that you're comfortable with. You have the choice to market in the ways that you see fit. You have choice to decorate your office how you want to. There's a choice of how hard you want to work or how little you want to work. So independence is really about choice.
Absolutely. We can dive into a lot of those different choices in a minute, but Dylan, what are the differences you've seen since you've gotten to know some independent advisors? I assume before you probably didn't know too many, and now I know you've been having a lot of conversations. So what have you seen differences between personalities, practices, all those things compared to a more corporate world?
I'd say the biggest difference is the wide range of personalities and practices. You have general lifestyle practices that these independent advisors have gotten to a point where they're on autopilot. They've got everything under control, and they don't seek any more growth. That's their prerogative. That's where they find fulfillment. They do other things with their time, but they can do that because of the practice they've built on the independent side and the economics and I guess that autopilot mentality. And then on the other side, you have the independent advisors that are in full on growth mode. They're looking for community and continuity, just to kind of have some support, but they also want to maximize their tools and resources when it comes to growth. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between a corporate structure is you can be on both sides of that, whereas a corporate structure you might have performance standards or product standards, this, that, and the other that you have to meet that maybe force your hand to do things that don't align with the practice you want to build.
Makes sense. And David, for you, I'm curious. So optionality sounds exciting. I think it's a great thing in a lot of ways, but it's also a little bit overwhelming probably at times. What do you think the most overwhelming, for people who are considering independence, what do you think the most overwhelming option is for people when they're coming into this space?
Well, I think those that were with a corporate type organization had a lot of the stuff done for them without even knowing it sometimes. And then when you come into this space as an independent, all of a sudden it's all on you. So you've got to figure out how to make it work, what works, what doesn't, who to use, how to do it. And I think that's a little overwhelming for somebody that's making the jump anyway, but then have that on top of everything. It just adds more to the complexity.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Todd, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to add, he hit the nail on the head, but there are so many resources out there to help guide you through, kind of knowing the things that you don't know, that, yeah, it's overwhelming at first, but it's almost overwhelming just in a thought process, not necessarily in an action process. It's not like this is the first time in the history of mankind someone's gone independent. So it's like it's been done and done and done, and there are so many resources available to help navigate, what may appear or seem mentally at least overwhelming, not as bad as it really is.
Yeah, especially when you're in the moment. I think that's the difference, right? Is that there's options, there's solutions, but when you're in the moment trying to identify what those directions need to be, it's a little overwhelming. But yeah, it's not the first rodeo.
And I think as we don't want to skip ahead here, but we talk about partnered independence. That's where partnered independence is really key for somebody that's coming from a corporate employee W-2 type structure to say, hey, you've got this wide world of options available to you. We can shrink that down so you can get started, and then as you get comfortable in that and you can make more of those choices, you have that optionality and freedom. But in the short term, to get your business moved and get you independent, partnered independence is a great solution for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You mentioned a key point. It's not the first rodeo, but if you go back to the beginning of our careers, and Todd, especially yours, independence wasn't as popular as it is now. It wasn't as easy to transition. I think it still could be very overwhelming. We were fortunate, I think, to find a great partner in Commonwealth. I think they helped us to not have to go down every road and then pick a road, which I think when you're considering it, incredibly overwhelming. So to me, that, it isn't the first rodeo, and it is important to hear that, but it's also important when you're considering to look for the right partner for you, someone who's going to nurture you through those decisions, who's going to help you figure out all the nuances, because there is unlimited options, more or less. I mean, whether it's, Commonwealth or Raymond James or, another independent broker dealer that can help you, there's options everywhere you go. So it can be overwhelming, but I think, like you said, it's changed a lot since our career started, and I think it's easier now than ever, probably. But I think that's a good leeway into why partnered independence, because I do think those firms can do a great job of ushering you in, but partnered independence is another layer on top of that. So Dylan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that means to you? What is partnered independence?
Yeah, to me, if you think about it this way, you have the world of independence is like, call it New York City, right? So you're just another business in New York City. And then as you choose a broker dealer, so Commonwealth, Raymond James, Charles Schwab, some of these others, that may be where you move into a suburb of New York City. And then when you talk about partnered independence, I think that's where you start to say, okay, now I'm moving into a neighborhood, right? So you're just shrinking down as far as like your community goes, and it's far more intentional than just being another house or another office, if you will, in New York City. So I think partnered independence from a community aspect is probably the greatest, because it's intentional, and you can get community through these relationships with Commonwealth. Like we have a great community with several Commonwealth advisors, but I think as you start moving into this partnered independent space, it's far more intentional. There's more gatherings, there's more events, there's more of this. What am I trying to say there?
Well, the other aspect, which David kind of alluded to, is the economies of scale that come into moving to the neighborhood, right? Is how can I partner with someone even when it comes to non-investment related issues, such as healthcare for your employees. So, the larger number of employees, the greater the opportunity is for a more elaborate, sophisticated, all-encompassing healthcare plan for you, your family, and all your employees. So economies of scale is another key part to partnered independence.
Yeah, and what I was trying to get at was more about the culture, though. I think the culture is just different than living in New York City to living in one of the bigger suburbs to then moving into a specific neighborhood in that suburb. The culture is just far more intentional than if you were just in one of those bigger places. And then that just helps you feel more free and around people that think and act like you and that you get along with, family, right? That's one of our core values is family. And so I think that's where that smaller neighborhood aspect of it comes in, and where partnered independence, I think, is the biggest benefit, is you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and you know that, versus living in a bigger city where, you could just be another number. And that's fine. Some people like that, but there's others that want more of that community, want more of that, hey, I want to go independent, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to drink from the fire hydrant. Can you make that fire hydrant a water hose? And
Yeah.
that's where we do.
Well, you both hit on some great points there with pricing, grouping, things like that. But I want to put a pause in it real quickly for people who aren't as familiar with the independent space world outside of the corporate world. I want to dive in a little bit to just explain what our relationships are. So, Todd, if you want, dive into our relationship with Commonwealth, who they are to us, what they do for us. And then, David, I'll have you touch on our relationship with Fidelity and Pershing and what those relationships are, just to give people an idea. Because I think, when we were on the other side, learning all these different relationships, what they are, what they mean, and how they relate to you long term is confusing. So can we break that down simply?
Sure. So I use a visual that's kind of like a target. I'll cover the bullseye and then the first ring around the bullseye, and then David can hit the third ring around it. So if you think about it, we as financial advisors, we're the bullseye. Todd Vincent, financial advisor. And then the name you put in that bullseye could be Todd Vincent Wealth Management. It could be Todd Vincent Raymond James. It could be Cedarwood Financial Partners. So that's who we are as a financial advisor in the center. Well, you need the next ring around that bullseye. You need someone to come around you to hold your license, to kind of be your back office support, do the statements, conduct audits, all the administrative things that you might think about that it takes just to function in the financial world. You need a partner for that. And Commonwealth is our broker dealer, our partner around us that we're licensed through and get research from and do our compliance with and all of those things. So that's our relationship with Commonwealth.
And then the third ring, or the outside ring, it has all the numbers on it for a reason on a dartboard. That's kind of like Fidelity. They are a custodian. They hold our money. They make our transactions. We trade through them. And so we wanted to partner with, when we're designing and building Cedarwood, on a brand name. Everybody's heard of Fidelity in the market, and they're one of the biggest custodians out there. We have a couple other choices with Pershing, but we're using Fidelity right now.
Yeah, Fidelity is obviously a huge name in our industry. For you guys, was it important to have relationships with people that felt secure? I mean, to me, going independent, I really didn't even know where's the money held at first, and then who handles your licenses, all those things. Was it important to have someone who had stability there?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important for us, but then also for our clients to just have that trust and assurance that they've heard of people that are actually holding their investments.
Yeah, because a lot of folks haven't, from the client aspect, haven't heard of Commonwealth, and that's really intentional because Commonwealth is a partner to advisors and don't own any clients directly. So there's no marketing to clients. Their marketing is to advisors because that's what they do. And to me, both of those just provide great infrastructure. They're wonderful infrastructure partners, and Commonwealth specifically is a great strategic partner too. We've benefited greatly from their consulting and all of their guidance as we've entered these new territories, and as we continue to build Cedarwood the way we want. They're really helping us shape it so that it's a firm that's going to stand the test of time. And Alex and I have the longest runway, I would assume, God willing, of the four here at the table. But we want to see this all the way through into retirement and then beyond. And Commonwealth is really helping us make sure that every decision we make can stand the test of time. So I'm thankful for that.
I think that was an old man jab, by the way.
I think it was.
Yeah. It's all right.
So to kind of dovetail off what Dylan just said, when we think about those three rings, right? So obviously you are in the center, and that's where you get a lot of freedom and choice. Like we started this podcast out at, is to well, what am I going to call myself? What do I envision? What's that center bullseye going to look like from the client perspective? And then obviously choosing partners that go around you, and there's other rings for name recognition like Fidelity, because it has been interesting that some clients, they just think that, will you hold their money? Yeah. Well, that's not the case. But I really want to put a plug in for Commonwealth right here, in that, like as Dylan said, they are all about trying to support the independent advisor. They're They're not trying to build a book of clientele. They're trying to serve some of the very best independent financial advisors. And their motto, their logo, if you will, when you go to the home office or you get a coffee mug or a t-shirt, it's go where you grow. So if someone's looking to be independent, and you definitely are going to have to partner with somebody to at least hold your license and conduct your trades, those are two great partners out there because they're really about supporting you as the financial advisor.
I think that's great. Go where you grow. To me, really, the ring almost has a fourth, and in the middle is each advisor at our firm. Right? They own their book, and Cedarwood has a purpose for them. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen as I've researched the independent space is that people grow faster when they have a relationship. So when people are partnered with others, they're more successful. Cedarwood, in our minds, is going to play a great role in that. What are some of those things that, to you, Cedarwood has purpose for independent advisors versus them going and not having that extra fourth ring? What are some huge value adds that Cedarwood brings?
I think a lot of it is just the experience. I mean, one of our partners, with being in the business as long as he has with one company and stepping out of that corporate structure, there's a lot of scars on his back going through this to get set up to be an independent channel. And he's been there. We've been there. We've developed processes to make it easier for the next person. And I think that's one of the areas that someone can benefit from is we've, stepped over the bridge first and we know the path, and it makes it easier for those that follow behind us to join with us and be part of our community.
I love that word you use, experience. And I think that's something that you can only get when you're a part of something bigger than yourself. I mean, when you go independent, you'll experience a lot of the things independence brings. But when you do it together with other like-minded individuals and you're building something bigger than who you are, I don't think you can beat that experience. And that's what we're trying to create with our culture and our core values is an experience. I like that word a lot.
I think it's easy to say we're going to use our experience to help people. What's a real world experience that we've had that we're going to be able to help people with?
This is a long list.
Yeah, it is a long list.
But I mean, if you're on the other side of this and you're thinking, oh, this might be something I want to consider, and then someone says, oh yeah, we've been through it and we can help you, and then it's like, okay, well, what does that really look like? If I'm talking to an NBA player and he says he can help me, well, he's not going to be able to turn me into an NBA player, but he might be able to help me jump higher, shoot better, be more consistent, more fundamental. So what are some of the ways that we can do that? I mean,
well, one thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of times, when you're talking with a client, it's like, what's the goal and what's the end game here? Oh, I want to retire. At what age? And what do you want for income? Because based on that thought, that desire, then we almost back into it, right? So I might say in one regard, if I was a financial advisor out there and I'm trying to decide what if I'm going to make a change, it's like, well, when your career does come to an end, what do you want it to look like? When you have felt like you've conquered all the mountains and you're at top and maybe you still have lots of runway left, like Dylan, what do you want those years to look like? Like what location, what arrangement for your target and your bullseye and your rings? Like, do you want to say, I want the freedom to work as little or as much as I want to without any pressure, except maybe my wife, right? I want my business to have a legacy aspect to it. I intend to sell my business. I mean, there's so many things that we can offer experience to from, the whole thought process of, well, why would you even leave? So maybe that's one experience that we could help share with people who are thinking about it.
Yeah, I think the other is as you start to think about right-sizing your business. A lot of these corporations have programs in place for you to do that. are they fair? Are they equitable? That's for you to determine, I guess, where you're at. But I think having the freedom to design that the way that you best see fit, so that the advisor that you're sharing assets with gets taken care of, but then you get well compensated for the business you built. That's one experience we've walked through, and I've talked with several advisors that are like, I've just got too many clients to move, and I said, well, that's actually a reason you should move. That's where you need to go out and you need to build a team. And we love the diamond team structure. It's something that we fully embraced in our office, and through that experience, we've now been able to kind of coach other team. We've got 2 of them going now in our firm, and we hope that as we continue to grow, we build out more and more of those. But I think the experience of actually building a team and right-sizing your business, from how do I get compensated for that to what does this look like, and what is the timetable for how do I sit in client meetings and make sure that from the client aspect they don't ever feel like they're being let go of, because they're really not. They're just being served a little bit differently by somebody else. But you're still right there in this concept, and I think that's an experience that I can't wait to continue to share more about, and for us to build more branches like that.
Yeah, what I think is really nice about that is that in most of the corporate firms, from what I've heard, they're very limited on the ways they can do that, right? And what Todd expressed there very well is that our size helps us with this, but we get to know each other very well. And so as someone's looking to do that, we can get to know them, what they're truly trying to achieve, and then help them build that team that fits for them specifically. And it doesn't have to be the same as the way your team is built or any other team that we have at the firm. They're able to have that flexibility. So I think that's a really nice part of our size. And along with that, we do have training. So I think a lot of people are concerned as they leave a big firm that if I bring someone on, they're not going to have training. It's all going to be on me, right? And that's overwhelming. That's a lot of work. And so something that we're very passionate about and we've all had a lot of experience in is training people up. So with the Cedarwood Edge, our goal is to keep training people and take that burden off of the advisors that we bring on board. So,
what other experiences, Dave? What experiences would you say that at this point you could help share to help people decide?
Yeah, I think just kind of the role that I adopted was the finance and how you get paid. Right, coming as a independent, when you come across, you don't have a real great idea of what that looks like behind the scenes. And we've spent a lot of time developing processes to make sure that we're fair and equitable across the board, at the same time growing our business and making some initiatives to help with branch profitability and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think those are some areas that, as an independent, you get a paycheck directly deposited in your account. You don't really know what happened behind the scenes. You probably do, especially if you have experience, but it's just so much different now. And I think
I'd say you'd be surprised. I've had conversation. There was one. He's a 15-year vet with Commonwealth and looking to retire. And we're kind of going through the due diligence there. But he has no idea what his payout is and what his costs are. He's just kind of always gone with the flow. And maybe that's his style, and that others will share in that. But I think you're 100% right. You've dialed it in to know exactly how to pinpoint that, and if there's you've also found errors, right, where we've had to call, and if you're not keeping track of that and you don't have a process, that's something you may be leaving money on the table actually, if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think the transparency along with that. I mean, because you can point to where every number comes from, and it helps them understand how that looks and where it's coming from.
I think the other aspect for someone considering going independent, especially from, say, a corporate structure, is like maybe the fear of the unknown of how do you get clients, how are clients going to come over to you, how are they going to find you, what's that whole experience and process going to look like and feel like, and how successful is it really going to be. And it's kind of one of those things that you can go talk to a lot of people who have done it, and you should, because they do have experiences to share with you. But it is one of those things that the more people you talk to, the more you can get a good idea. But it's a hard part that you're actually going to have to experience on your own. But getting wisdom from people who have already done it can probably make it less painful, for sure. So that's
No
a
doubt.
true experience we could share.
Yeah, and I think you can hit on it, Alex, as far as what he mentioned there, how do clients find you? That's where the marketing and the website and the social media is going to be massive to have that up and running right when you get going.
Yeah, and I'll say Commonwealth did a great job with us of having something, right? And the less support you have, the less money you have, the harder marketing is. I mean, this is a great example right now. We're doing a podcast. When we started, Dylan and I thought we should do a podcast, and we really had no idea what that entailed, what that looked like. And it's still, imagine trying to do this on our own. I can't imagine trying to edit this or find somebody to edit it independently. So having some scale gives us the ability to do marketing, I would say, at a better clip than most independents are able to do it.
Yeah. Shout out 360 Solutions.
Well,
Waco, Texas.
Waco, Texas.
Call Paul.
Better call Paul.
Paul.
Well, I want to just circle back because Todd had talked about legacy a little bit, and with legacy, there's a lot of things intertwining there, right? There's selling your business, there's business continuity, there's business succession. What are the biggest blocks there that you see that we're taking care of for people, or helping them figure out that we're having conversations with a lot of independents that they don't have it figured out?
Well, they don't have it figured out sometimes because I think they don't really know what they want to do. They generally say, I want to retire and I want to pass on my book. Well, there are more details to them. So what I think we've really tried to help people understand is that on the independent side, we can make this however you want to make it. We can help you build it however you want to build it. And depending on the circumstances, like let's say my brother as an example, that said, well, I want to really pass off to my family members. Well, what's that look like? Does he want to give it away? Does he want to sell it? Versus someone in Houston who's like, I have 0 family members and I just want to say bye on one day and I'm gone, right? So helping us walk through that process and knowing that you have, hey, there is no real left and right limit almost of how we can do it. That's exciting.
Yeah, I think it allows the clients to be hugged throughout the process too, right? Because you're a great example. So you have expanded your team. Your clients are getting better service than ever. And as you continue to grow, because that's just how you do things, you're going to continue to grow your team. And then as you get closer to retirement, you're going to be able to be transparent with your clients, which I think can be a struggle in the industry a little bit because they don't want clients to start to leave or start to look elsewhere. But if you're transparent throughout the process, it gives them a much more warm lead into their future rather than Todd's here one day, Todd's gone the next.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the succession planning that we're doing and coaching folks through is really important, especially if you don the name Cedarwood. You don't have to do that when you join us, but if you do, there's a lot of continuity in that alone versus if he was Todd Vincent Wealth Management, that's a lot of change coming to those clients, right? Because they're going to have to change documents and this, that, and the other. Whereas if you're a Cedarwood Financial Partners advisor, that's pretty seamless transition because nothing really changes on that except the name at the top of the statement. And I think speaking of W-2 and captive advisors, as they succession plan and they start to work out independent-wise, if you want to just work one day a week and as you kind of sail off into the sunset, you can do that for as long as you want. In the W-2 captive space, you can't do that, right? You can't just show up to the office every day for 6 or 7 years in a row. And while that may be unique and not something people take, but I think the optionality, the freedom to say, I want to start to really settle down and I just want to work 5 hours a week, and you can do that. I think that's the really cool thing. Whereas at the W-2, it's just like, hey, you can only paint your walls this color, you can only do this, and after your 1, 2, 3 year plan is up, you're out of here.
That points to a lot of things you see, which is control, right? And I think the experience that I have had in the past was that firms want to have control. Understandably so, it's a business, right? But for us, taking away a lot of that control and allowing the freedom to the advisor has been really important so that they can experience life and fulfillment the way that they want it. for you, as you, David, approach your retirement, and it's still a ways down the road, I hope, because I don't want to lose you anytime soon, but what do you envision those changes looking like? I mean, I know you're at home and you don't like to sit down on the couch, so it may just be working till death. But what do you think?
I think it really kind of boils down to either the want or the have to, as long as you want to go in to work and work with clients and do what we do, as long as that want and desire is there, the age part of it or the retirement part of it becomes second nature. If you're physically able to do it and you have that want instead of the have to, I think that's key. And so that's part of fulfillment, is just being able to choose what you want to do. And if you want to go into the office 5 days a week or 1 day a week or, whatever that looks like for you, you have those choices and you can make those choices on your own.
Mm-hmm. I think want to is a great phrase there. I would say a big part of joining us is people being able to do what they want to, and that might not be HR, which most of the firm doesn't handle. It might not be marketing, which most of the firm doesn't handle. A lot of those things that were taking care of for you elsewhere, and you thought, well, I pay a lot for it, but it's worth it because I don't want to do those things. We can do for you, which is a nice little additive there. But there's a lot more to it. I'd say even as far as a lot of people I'm learning don't like managing money at all. That sounds crazy for a financial advisor, doesn't it? I mean, to me it does. When I started, it was call, sell Johnson & Johnson, and that's what I did. I picked up the phone.
That is not a recommendation, by the way.
No recommendations, no, but that's what we did. We picked up the phone and made calls and tried to sell things, and to meet independent advisors now that say, we don't do any money management. Like, okay, well, that's cool. So what do you do? Oh, you do business plans, you do retirement plans for people, you do a lot of other things that you get paid for and bring value. That's your choice. And what I've learned from a lot of people is they're saying, I want to keep working as long as I'm doing things I enjoy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the planning and the strategic side is the fun part, right? And I think that's where the industry continues to evolve to, is more planning focused, and the investments are coming more and more secondary. I think they're still important, but they're not the most important. And Todd's really big on cash flow planning, retirement planning, all those good things. Those are the important things. The investments and the returns, I mean, those are truly secondary when you think about it, because if you don't have a good plan but you have great investment returns, what are you planning for? I think that's a good tagline too. Mm-hmm. Do what you want to, let Cedarwood do what you don't want to.
Well, quickly before you move on from investments, what are we doing to help people with that, to take that off their plate a little bit?
So on our team currently, for the advisors, trying to take some of that off their plate, Commonwealth, first and foremost, has platforms where they'll do all the money management. So very simple, plug and play and do what you want to do. For those of us who like to be a little bit more hands-on, we have in our Cedarwood, lineup, we have mutual funds and portfolio models that we've extensively, run through grids from different mutual fund companies that help us develop different layouts. And so, okay, there's another aspect of, we took some pressure off and made it a little bit easier. And then even from that point, you could say, well, I want to take some of that research, some of that portfolio and adopt it, and then I want to build my own. So really, the gamut is offered with resources available all along the way to say, pick what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and to that point, some people do love picking investments, and what's been neat to see is the amount of research tools out there that people can use if they want to. Yeah. I don't pay for them because I don't love that stuff, right? I mean, I like being involved on the model side with our firm and helping figure out what are the best options there. But to me, going through and digging through alphas and betas all day isn't what I have fun doing. So it's been neat to see that there's technology out there. And I think with tying back to the beginning of our conversation, the independent world's changed so much that they're able to take these groups of independent advisors and make it affordable because they have so many of them, which in essence is what the huge corporate firms do. It's just a different look at it. Well, I think that puts a nice bow on the end of this conversation. Is there anything else that you guys have on partnered independence or just independence in general that you want to touch on?
I think for anybody who is going to consider a change, partnered independence is probably the safest, smoothest bet to get from A to B. We've tried to structure our firm that was such a good experience, and then the culture, the values, everything else that goes with it would be a reason that you would say, I want to always be a part of this. But at the same time, we've also made our arrangement, our goal to say, if someone does not want to be a part of this, then that's okay. And it's still their business, it's still their book. They can still go do the things they want to do. But we hope to create an environment in a firm that not only did we help go from A to B, but I'm going to B to C, and I'm still with the same firm, that's Cedarwood Financial Partners.
Yeah, and I think the optionality with partnering with Commonwealth as well, to then say, we have all of these options out there that, if we don't like Fidelity, we've got Pershing and Charles Schwab coming on the platform. We don't like any of those. Okay, now we can just stand up an RIA, and all of this, right behind the scenes, the client is seeing really no effect to any of those changes for the most part, outside of some interface stuff. But I think that freedom and flexibility piece is really, really awesome, but it can be daunting. And so partnered independence really helps shrink that, while still giving you a glide path as you shift into these different stages of, okay, I'm at B, but now I want to go to C. I think I want to stand up my own RIA. How do I do that? And we can help kind of guide you through that. Or maybe you don't want to go RIA, but you want to drop licenses and be fee only. We can help you do that too. So I think there's the optionality and the freedom is great. It can be daunting. That's where partnering in independence makes it far less daunting.
Yep. We talked about an easy button for our clients our last podcast, I believe. We want that easy button for advisors that want to come on board with the partnership like we're offering. So we like easy.
No doubt. We definitely intend to be, just like Commonwealth is for us, we want to be that support system where we're not dictating, we're not deciding what your future looks like or what you're going to do today. We're truly just a partner that's there to support you, give you the resources that you need, the guidance that you need, and make life a little bit easier. All right, well, I'm going to say my filler word, all right, and then I'm going to say thanks for visiting with us today for another episode of Beyond the Trees. See you next time.